Good afternoon. I'm Edie, sitting in my backyard, and I'm an educator at John Bunker Sands Wetland Center. I want to help everybody out this summer with some information about itchy plants. This is itchy plant video number 1. And the big one I want to talk about today is poison ivy. It's important, I think, that everyone needs to be able to identify plants that cause dermatitis. So if you're a nature person, if you like to get out and hike, if you're a hunter even, and you're out hunting during whatever season you do that in, you've got to know about poison ivy. You need to dress for it also. Now what I'm going to do is give a quiz, little true-false quiz at the end of the video to the kiddos and parents who are watching to make sure that you get some interesting facts. So I'm going to pause for about 10 seconds, let everybody grab pencil and paper. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the person who identified the vine here in the United States. It was Captain John Smith in the early 1600s when he came across the ocean to visit the land that would become the United States. He saw vines that looked very similar to the vines in his garden back in England. Now he started working with them, and he thought about taking some, growing them, and transplanting, keeping the seeds, and so forth, like good gardeners do. But he discovered one day that he had a problem on his hands and arms, and he didn't like it. It was itchy and ended up in a rash. Well, he stopped experimenting with this particular ivy and decided to call it poison ivy. So that's how it got its name. Now, I know that some characters in movies, I know that have become named poison ivy. It's not a good thing to be called poison ivy, right? Okay, so we're going to start by talking about how to identify the poison ivy. I've got a sample here that I made. I hope you can see it. I've got this sample right up here. It shows exactly how many leaves it has. There's 1, 2, and 3 leaves. Now this one down here is a mix of 2 different stems, so there are more than 3 leaves. But if you looked at this stem right here, you can find the rest of the 3 leaves. There's a rhyme that goes with this that can help you remember what it looks like. Leaves of 3 don't touch me. And that goes for any plant that you see when you're on a hike or on a trail or even working in your front yard. If you see a plant that grows with 3 leaves together on a single stem, then you need to look it up and make sure that that's not poison ivy. All right? I have it in my yard. It grows profusely in our neighborhood. And it's just, you need to really be careful, believe me. All right. Now, another thing about poison ivy is it can also be a little different. It can grow as a bush, as a small shrub or bush. Typically, it's a vine. It vines up trees. It vines up poles. It grows in your flower gardens. But it can also, like I said, it can also grow as a small bush. So once again, you need to check those leaves, all right? And poison ivy is a beautiful green. It's not shiny on the top of the leaf, but it does have kind of a gloss to it, all right? Now, another thing about the poison ivy is that it can change, the leaves can change colors from an orange to a beautiful red. And I think you know, we talked about the stem. It turns red occasionally also. That's a sign that that's poison ivy, is that red stem. All right. Now, let's talk about what makes it itchy. There is a substance inside the roots of poison ivy, inside the leaves of poison ivy, and the stems. It doesn't matter which part of it you've had contact with, but the substance is called urushiol. It's a strange name and it's kind of hard to say. Urushiol. So that liquid or substance that's inside the poison ivy plant itself is what causes the problems. It's on the surface of the leaf, it's on the outside of the stem, and it's in the roots. So any place that you touch that plant is going to cause you problems. Okay? Now, if you're going out to work in the yard, you need to have long sleeves on and gloves if you're working around vines, your vines and plants, because you'd be surprised where it can pop up. Also, if you and your family are going hiking in the hot summer, in the late spring and hot summer, you need to have on long pants, socks, and shoes. That's one way you can avoid an issue when you get home with the kids saying that their arms itch or their ankles itch. All right? So take care of that before you get out, and it won't be a problem when you get home. Now, let's talk a little bit about how to take care of poison ivy if you have it on you. If you get home and you decide that, you've got an itch. Say, I've got an itch on my forearm here. You might want to go ahead and treat it. The little steps that I'm going to show you are very, very simple, and it uses ingredients that you probably have in your kitchen at home. So let's take a look. First of all, you want to take off all of your clothes that have had contact with poison ivy. I'm talking about shoes, socks, jeans, and maybe your shirt. Take a shower if you need to, but then if you're just working on it, say in the bathroom sink or at the kitchen sink, wash your hands and arms or whatever area of your body is burning and itching from the poison ivy. Just squirt on some Dawn, rub it gently with your hand. Don't scrub it hard because you're just going to rub that urushiol deeper into the surface of your skin. So you're going to wash all of that off of your body where it's itching. All right? The next thing that you need to do after you wash it off your skin, and by the way, you can use another soap. It doesn't have to be Dawn, but everyone that deals with plants or deals with contact dermatitis, they'll say that Dawn is a good soap to use to wash that off of your arms. The next thing that I do, and I've talked with friends who do this also, is use some red cider vinegar with a cotton ball to neutralize whatever urushiol is still on your on your arm, So you just take it and dab it on the area that's itching. All right, let it dry by air. Don't pat it with anything. Just let the vinegar dry. And yes, you're going to smell like a pickle for a couple of hours. All right, the last thing that I do personally when I've gotten an itchy rash from working in the yard, certain plants, even hackberry leaves will irritate my arms. I do the Dawn and red cider vinegar, and I use this. This is a generic anti-itch lotion, kind of like Caladryl. All right, this is generic. Doesn't cost a whole lot, but I keep it around all the time because you never know when you're going to get in something that might itch. All right, so it's time for our quiz. Oh, one thing, there's a question on here that I did not talk about, so we're going to cover it real quickly as we get to the question on the quiz. All right, number 1. Is poison ivy contagious? True or false? Is it contagious? True or false? What do you think? If you've cleaned yourself up, if you've washed the area, used an anti-itch lotion, or aloe vera is even good. If you've used those, do you think you would be contagious if you rubbed up against your brother or sister or a friend? Well, the answer is false. Poison ivy is not contagious. Number 2, let's talk about our furry friends. You might take them on a hike. They could get in poison ivy too. It's going to rub on their fur. So is it going to affect their skin and cause them to have itchy places? You might see them start scratching. So does it bother our cats and dogs? Can they get poison ivy? True or false? What do you think? It's false as well. However, the urushiol will be on their fur. So you will need to give them, you or your mom or dad, the grown-ups, need to give the doggy or the cat a shampoo to get that urushiol off of their fur. All right, let's try number 3. You can get itchy from poison ivy that is dead and all dried up. If it's dead, if you've cut it and or pulled the roots up and you think you've gotten rid of it and you just leave it laying there and it dries out in the sun and you gather it up with your hands and put it in the trash, is that going to bother you because it's dried up? Is it going to make you itch? Plant looks dead. What do you think? Well, guess what? You can get itchy. All right, so that is true. You can get itchy. You can get poison ivy, even if it's dried up. So that means that if you work with someone to clean up leaves, or you've cut the yard and you're raking and picking up the trash and putting it into the trash container or trash bag, you need to make sure that there's no poison ivy that's cut or dried up that you're picking up with your hands. That's why I always recommend that we work in our yard with garden gloves, of course. All right, number 4, you can get the itch and rash from the stems. Can you get poison ivy by just touching the stems? If I took the stem and just rubbed my fingers up and down on the stem, would that create an itch? That's true. Remember we said that all parts of poison ivy will cause a rash. All right, number 5. We talked about this in the very beginning. There are 2 states in the U.S. that do not have poison ivy. Can you name them? What's the first one? How about Hawaii? Hawaii, across the ocean, makes sense that they don't have poison ivy. It's never been taken over there. If it has, I'm sure people take care of it, but in their wild areas, they're said to not have any poison ivy. And Alaska is the other one. Now that's the one that I wouldn't be very sure whether or not they had poison ivy, with all of the woods and forests, beautiful places that they have, but there's no poison ivy in Alaska. All right, I hope I helped with planning a trip to the woods and knowing what to do if you get into some poison ivy. Being able to identify it's the biggest deal. All right, our next video on itchy plants is Itchy Plants 2. I'm going to be talking about specifically 2 other plants that are common to Texas. You might even have them in your flower bed. You never know. All right, thanks, and we'll see you again.